My name is Kara and I'm a home cook. Today I'm bringing you along as I process, clean, and meal prep my weekly CSA box so it's ready to turn into healthy, nourishing, whole food meals. Alright, let's see what we got. We've got milk. This is what I use to make yogurt with every week. It's a pasteurized milk, but it is a cream line, so that means it's non-homogenized, so the cream layer just kind of sits on the top of the milk. We also get a cheese. This is a very raw, very sharp cheddar cheese. We get eggs and see what's in our produce box this week. Green onions. Looks like a purple Russian kale. I think this is gailon, which is Chinese broccoli. Getting to the end of tomato season. Got a split though, so I'll probably need to process this one today. A couple tomatoes, radishes, peppers, and a squash. Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is just put away the milk. I'll probably make yogurt in a couple of days, along with the milk and the cheese. Okay, let's get into the cleaning and processing. When I have the time, I like to wash and process the vegetables so they are ready to go and we're more likely to cook with them. So today we are starting with kale. Kale is by far my least favorite vegetable. So prepping it is very important so that I have no excuse not to use it. I'm stripping off the spines here, and then I'm going to wash the leaves and slice them thinly into strips so that they're ready for either sauteing or throwing into a soup. So if you don't know, CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and it's a system where one farm or a group of farms puts together a box of in-season produce. So typically you pay one lump sum at the beginning of the season, which allows the farmers to invest in the infrastructure they need to grow the food. So we get our CSA every week from May to November. Our CSA is 607 CSA, and the farms are from the Catskills region of New York, which is about a 3-hour drive from New York City, where I live. In addition to the produce, we also add on eggs, milk, and cheese. Before we had the CSA, I would make a meal plan and grocery shop online for delivery. Back when I was meal planning, I would often choose recipes from bookmarks based on whims, and I was often cooking out of season meals a lot of the time. I also found that if I just wasn't in the mood to cook a specific meal or something came up, that I would waste the produce. So we've been getting our CSA for about 4 seasons now, and I no longer meal plan. I just respond to whatever is in the box that week. To be able to do this, I have to keep the rest of our pantry pretty well stocked with shelf-stable staples like proteins, legumes, grains, and seasonings. The CSA has made me a more creative cook and transformed my diet because I'm cooking with local, fresh, nutrient-dense ingredients. So after I've washed and sliced the kale, I just pulled out a clean dish towel, and I'm gonna let the kale air dry on the counter for a couple of hours before I put it away. Next, I'm just going to finely dice up these scallions and put them away in the fridge. You can see inside of that glass Tupperware container that I have a piece of paper towel. I usually put that inside of washed produce so that if there's any lingering moisture, it'll get wicked up into that paper towel. All right, it looks like one of my tomatoes split in transit, so I'm going to go ahead and process that. So I'm cutting out the stem here, and I'm just going to throw the whole tomato into a bag in the freezer. I have some tomatillos also from the CSA and a couple of tomatoes as well. I'll just keep these in the freezer until I'm ready to cook with them. I'll probably just throw them into tomato sauce or soup. I like to freeze tomatoes because if you run them under cool water, you can very easily just peel off the skin. All right, let's keep it nice and simple with these sweet peppers. I am just going to put them directly into a Tupperware container. These are the WEC 743 glass jars. I love these jars. I like them a lot more than the ball canning jars. I think they're just easier to work with the wider mouth. And they are also a great replacement if you're trying to stop using those plastic deli containers. If I was a better person, I would have washed and used these radish greens. I had enough to deal with this day, and I also have all of that kale to eat. So I'm just going to go ahead and compost these. So you'll notice I've just been keeping this dish towel over to the right of my cutting board. I've been trying to dry all of the produce before I cut it up. It is so much easier to cut things when they're not dripping wet, less likely to stick to your knife and make a mess. So for these radishes, I've gotten sort of tired of eating them raw in salads. So I decided to just cut off the ends and cut them into quarters. A couple of days later, I ended up roasting these, and they were so delicious. I roasted them just in olive oil, salt, pepper, and then this winter and summery savory herb mix from Burlap and Barrel, which I'll link in the description. And it was so delicious. Radishes just have this very spring-like flavor, which was a welcome change in October. All right, once again, I'm using one of the WEC jars to store these, and I'm putting in a folded paper towel to wick up any moisture. All right, now for the gailon or the Chinese broccoli. I'm just gonna keep it really simple and easy and throw it into a stasher bag. I figure we'll probably blanch this, so it'll be really easy to just rinse it off over the running sink before we use it next. And then the last thing I'm going to do today is process some of these beets. These did not, as you can tell, come in this week's CSA box, but they were lingering in the fridge from a prior week. So I'm going to go ahead and just chop and process all of those. Since beets are pretty messy and they stain so easily, I'm going to throw on my apron. I love this apron. I'll put a link to it in the description. It was a gift from my husband for Christmas a couple of years ago. I also decided to grab a plastic cutting board. I wasn't sure if the beets would also stain the wooden cutting board, and instead of looking it up or risking it, I just grabbed a plastic cutting board. I'm just cutting off any weird pieces and the roots and the top, and I'm going to dice these into small pieces. I'm also not a huge fan of beets, hence why they were in the fridge for a couple of weeks. I do like them diced and then roasted and then used in beet tacos. I follow a recipe from Rick Martinez in Bon Appetit. It's for his beet tostados, but I use them just on tacos. It's a couple hours later and the kale is mostly dry, so let's put them away. I'm grabbing a paper towel again to wick up all the moisture. I could probably use small pieces of cloth, but I have so much laundry to do all the time when it comes to the kitchen, so I make it a little easier on myself with the paper towel. So yeah, I'm gonna just get all of the pieces into this big glass Pyrex container and we'll be done. Okay, the very last thing we need to do before we put away the produce is update the fridge list. This is just a dry erase board. I think it's a chore chart, and we try to keep a log of everything that's perishable in the fridge, sometimes including leftovers too, so that we make sure nothing goes to waste. Over on the weekly goals section, I typically log everything that's in the freezer. I haven't done that in a couple of months, but next time I clean the freezer, I will update that section as well. And there is everything we cleaned, washed, and processed today. I'll keep the squash and the tomato at room temperature until we eat them. Thank you so much for coming along with me while I ingredient prep the CSA. If you're enjoying my channel, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time on Home Food TV.